Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Adopted Podcast. With me today, I have Francesco Corti joining from Italy. And Francesco is a lead product manager at Docker, and he's leading some of their AI initiatives. So we thought it'll be good to get him to the podcast and discuss what Docker is doing, how he's thinking about AI, which might help all of us too. So, Francesco, welcome.
Hi, Deepak. Nice to meet you and all the people here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Um, Amazing to have you, Francisco. I wanted to start off with a very simple question, right? I think the audience would love to know what Docker does in layman terms. I know the technical audience gets it, but how would you explain that to like a 10-year-old?
Okay. So first of all, it's a good question because, of course, Docker is known for developers mostly. So it's a tool. It's a platform, I would say, but platform is an overloaded term. And so, first of all, the something to highlight that Docker is open source. And so it's an open source platform enabling developer to automate the development life cycle, usually local in their machine, but this is expanding, of course, considering the cloud is a new world and it's important for developers as well. But it's also automating the management of application through this basic concept is called container. So a container is a consistent and standardized way of packaging application, regardless of the architecture of the physical machines where they are working and they're running. So again, the concept of the containers is really literally disrupted the world and landed to the cloud in the past years. And Docker simplified a lot the experience on using these containers. And in addition, of course, is a platform that making easier the management of this application for developers. So it's explicitly targeting developers and the developer experience. Am I be simple enough? I don't know, maybe not, but you will tell
I
me.
think so. I think so. So if I were to put it in my own words, what you're saying is Docker helps with containerization. So if somebody is building an app or software and wants to make it accessible across different layers and to different people, you containerize that, right? And you don't have to have a virtual machine anymore. You just containerize that, and anybody anywhere can, as long as they have access to that Docker image or the container, can access this and work on it. Is that correct?
Fantastic. Thank you, Deepak. It makes total sense also to me.
Yeah, sorry, this is my limited and that's all I know about Docker. So I'm glad I got it right. uh, all right, Francisco, next question for you is, could you tell us a little bit about what Docker is doing to invest in AI powered tools for developers?
Yeah, so let me say Docker is definitely a leader in the developer experience space. I mean, again, we were also starting from the definition of what Docker does. And of course, since the AI come to play, that again, it seems to be a long time ago, but instead is not too much time ago. Of course, this is becoming very, very important also for every developer in every field, area, sector, private, public, and things like that. And of course, this is why also AI is important also for Docker, because of course, Docker, one of the goals of Docker is to help developers where they are, and we want to be where developers are, of course, and developers are focusing a lot in leveraging a lot AI, and of course, Docker must be leading also this space. As part of the developer experience as well. So the reason why Docker is jumped into the space, to be honest, because just to add some spicy also to the podcast, Docker has not been. He didn't jump into the AI space since the early stages of AI, but it doesn't change the fact that Docker is investing a lot in the AI space because we believe, like, honestly, the entire market that AI is going to disrupt. Of course, the developer experience. Disrupt is probably a little bit challenging and negative, but I would say help the developers a lot and empower the developers a lot. So, I mean, we want to be there and help the developers even more, of course.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll talk more about it. That developer experience is what, when AI came to the forefront, a lot of people thought, this will really help, with use cases like customer support and AI BDR and all these other use cases. But developer productivity was a huge, huge use case of AI, right? So we'll talk a little bit more about it, during the subsequent part of the section. I wanted to ask you another question. So Docker, what I read online, has come up with something called Ask Gordon, right? And my limited understanding of what it does is it helps people use Docker better. You can ask questions, you can get actions done. If you do not know all the actions in Docker, you can just chat and get stuff done. Could you talk a little bit about what Gordon does?
Sure. So, Ask Gordon. So, first of all, Gordon, and I give you a little bit of interesting reason why we picked this name of Gordon. So, let me say, Gordon. So, Ask Gordon is the AI assistant on everything that is Docker related. Okay, so I'm sure that a lot of the people that is listening here are aware of AI tools to help developers in their IDEs. Again, using AI to generate code and source code. Ask Gordon is our AI agent helping developers in doing good stuff in the proper way with Docker related things. Docker, again, the mission the goal of Docker is to make simpler also this containerization and help the developers in their life cycle. With Gordon, we believe that we are helping even more through the AI assistant because we are building Gordon to be the most knowledgeable and helpful entity. I don't want to call it person or people or I don't know what assistant, I would say, in Docker related things. And do you know, Deepak, why we picked the name of Gordon?
No, very curious, Francisco.
So funny enough, Gordon was the mascot of Docker, of the founders of Docker, and it was a turtle. So it was the mascot that was also living into the offices, the initial offices of Docker since the early days of Docker. And so we try also to use this as a logo, but I mean, logo and communication is a little bit hard. But anyway, so the reason why the name of this clever assistant is Gordon is exactly because it was the mascot of Docker at the very beginning. And so I think it makes sense also in terms of
It does, because AI is also helping companies rethink everything, and so you're kind of back at the beginning, right? So going back to your roots and getting that out there is a good idea.
But just to, I mean, also for the benefit of the people that is listening, this is not the only initiative that we have around AI, because Gordon is absolutely something that we know it is helping a lot newbies in learning what Docker can do for you. And it's very much important because Gordon is also, of course, under the approval and the permission of the developer, can do also things for you. That is really much important. But it's also, I mean, Docker is also helping developers in developing AI applications. That is another important area that again supported by Gordon, but we are adding AI functionalities as part of the platform that was defined at the very beginning. And so, for example, recently, because we are talking about 2 months ago, we shipped the capability as part of Docker to run your local models as part of the platform, so you can create your AI application leveraging local services. And again, meeting the developers where they are, because let's be clear, probably today, so well, honestly, today, from our experience, of course, every developer is playing with AI. We can debate how many of them are really doing AI application for production usage in real space. And this is, I think it's also one of the reasons why we have this podcast, but you will tell me more. But again, Docker is also present with what we call the Docker model runner, exactly also as a core functionality, added core functionality to help developers in developing AI applications. So we have also this in this space. And this is not the last, because we are adding more. I can tell you more, but again, I don't want to sound too much markety or advertising, of course. But we are very excited about these new capabilities, by the way.
Yeah, would love to dive a little bit deeper. So just to separate the two, Francisco, one capability is Ask Garden, which is basically it can give answers and do stuff that Docker can do today, right? And it just makes it easier. But the other capability that you talked about is Docker investing in helping make AI model deployment very easy for developers, right? So I think you're briefly talking upon local models, right, and how developers can use Docker to deploy them. Could you elaborate more for users, for listeners, Francisco? Why is that important? Why do you need local models just like an OpenAI?
It is very interesting. Do you know why, Deepak? Because something that we are hearing from the field. So let's be clear. If you think about the creating new Gen AI applications, since some times ago, I'm talking about some months, maybe 1 year, a couple of years maximum, because this is the AI area. Okay, models and in general the tools to interact with a human-like system like ChatGPT, Gemini, or Anthropic, so Claude, require big models that cannot run elsewhere than a big machines into the cloud. Okay, but since sometimes the models are more clever, also if they are smaller. DeepSeek is a good example. DeepSeek, one of the big impact of DeepSeek is that it was a small model. Okay, it was open source. This is an important impact, but also it was a small model, pretty capable and pretty smart. Small model comes with some implications. You don't need this super huge machines to run these models, and this is changed and is changing the behavior also of the developers. Of course, small models were existing since a lot of time, but they weren't clever. Now they're becoming more clever, more focused, and so developers are having the appetite to leverage their development environment to run this model and get faster in the development life cycle. There is another topic that is very much interesting, that is about security. I don't know the people that is listening, but in our experience and in my experience, when I talk to customer, by the way, again, I am a product manager, so I talked a lot with customers. A lot of the companies that are thinking or they're using SaaS services for AI applications are concerned about the security aspect. The most recurring question that we're receiving is, what are you doing with my data? Are you using my data to train your models? What my data are you storing my data and my sensitive information and non-sensitive information? What happens if my user are sharing with you something that is strategic and I don't want them to share? These are all recurring questions that we receive, and this is also a pretty big challenge for a lot of also SaaS vendors in leveraging AI. And if we think about highly regulated sector, pharmaceutical, public sector, is even worse. So having the possibility to leverage local LLM, it's becoming more and more interesting for a lot of use cases. And this is where, honestly, I become a little bit more passionate, because I see a lot of developers experimenting and playing with this kind of capability, not only because the business is requiring the way that I was trying to describe right now, but also because it is opening to a series of opportunities. I want to quote, I talked a lot, Deepak, but again, it may be fine for a podcast. I want to quote as last, because we were quoting the security concern. We were quoting also the fact of some use cases that you can leverage locally. Something to quote is also, in some cases, I don't want to say that is a generic feedback, but in some cases, the cost at scale, of course, of a SaaS service can be a concern. And the second point is the latency. Because of course, the latency is always, let me say, a kind of bottleneck. At least if you have many requests to the SaaS services about again a language model, a large language model. I mean, can be also a bottleneck and a concern. So all of these factors here are making the local experience in running local LLMs pretty. I mean, emerging. Let's say, put it that way. Does it make sense, Deepak?
It makes sense, and it triggered another question inside of me, right? So what you're saying makes sense, Francisco. You need, like, a lot of companies, they value privacy of data. Cost goes down. You get much better latency, right? Like, because it's a local model, you don't have to like tap into all of the the other capabilities of large language models. But on the flip side, if you make an contrarian argument, the advocates of large language models, they say these are trained on so much more data that the responses are more thoughtful, more accurate, and that you also get access to um, everything being on cloud, right? Like, you don't have to host anything locally, everything being on cloud. So how do you see a world, Francisco, when both exist? Companies using large language and small language, or how do you see it?
Absolutely yes. So if someone else or myself will tell you that there is one fit for all, it is a lie, at least for the moment. So you're totally right. I'm not thinking, and I'm not saying that local LLMs will replace the SaaS services. I'm simply saying that I'm starting to see some use cases, some specific use cases where local LLMs are getting traction, a pretty good traction. I'll give you a few examples because I think it's interesting for the
Sure.
audience. Testing Gen AI applications. So one pattern that I'm hearing more currently from the field is that developers are using a development lifecycle of Gen AI application very similar to um, regular applications. So it means that you develop locally, maybe leveraging a SaaS service for LLM. I'm not saying, I'm talking about the end user application. Then you create a kind of unit testing to test the result and the outcome of your application. Then you have a pipeline. Then you deploy this into when the pipeline is green. Then you deploy this into a staging environment, and so on. I mean, I'm saying something obvious, but this is still valid also for Gen AI application, from what I'm hearing from the developers. And so now that a Gen AI application is not anymore deterministic in the way that they answer, because if you raise a prompt that it can be something that you add as part of your testing, the answer is not something that is always the same. So it can vary accordingly with I don't know, the decision of the algorithm that is used. So how do you test? How do you say if this test is green or red? So I'm hearing a lot of creative solutions, let me say. In some cases, and some emerging patterns is that they are using an LLM to interpret and value the answer
Mhm.
of the Gen AI
Mhm.
application.
Yeah.
So you can, of course, use the same LLM that generates the prompts, and it's fine. But maybe you want something cheaper, faster, and you don't need a complex LLM to do that. So
Mm.
this is a good example of having the need of a lighter LLM, but smart enough for a simple task. I was talking with some customer who are deploying and are using for production purpose some chatbot that are very light and very focused on some precise, let me say, tasks and support, for example. It is in the support area. They don't need complex LLM. They don't need big LLM. Another use case, I heard about someone else using LLM for translating content between across, languages. So, they have a worldwide support and they want to translate this in German because it's a German company. And they would like to translate every language in German so that the support team can address the ticket and address the problem. You don't need a big language to do that. And you don't need to be polished and do that. Again, local LLM, I'm not saying that local LLM are valid for, it's a fits for all. No. But there are use cases where local LLM can fit pretty well, even better than the SaaS services. I don't think that local LLM will entirely replace SaaS services.
No, those are fantastic use cases, Francisco. I think what you're saying is it's not just for the sensitive sectors, right, where local LLMs will play a major role in government and other sectors, but even across the board, there are some use cases where you don't need these large language models, right? Like testing and all these. Especially, I think an advantage of local LLMs in those cases is they hallucinate less, right? They're faster as long as you give them because they have a smaller window of learning that they need to do. So yeah, thanks for all the inputs there. I think after Apple started talking about small language models, and then people saw DeepSeek also do some stuff as a filtered down model, like and open source models also gaining a lot more traction. I think now people are beginning to trust SLMs a lot more. Francisco, in the interest of time, I have one more question, and then if that's okay, we'll get into a rapid fire. Okay.
Go for it.
Cool. So let's talk about developer productivity. I know we parked that question at the beginning of the podcast. Everybody's talking about this, right? So there's tools like Cursor. There's a bunch of tools that help developers get code very, very quickly. There's a lot happening in this space. What are you seeing, and what are use cases Docker is powering?
So in terms of developer productivity, what we are hearing, what we are seeing is that the majority of the developers are leveraging exactly tools like Cursor, Copilot to go faster and be more productive. This is the bigger use case, honestly, that we are hearing in terms of AI application, because let me say, less developers are working for production purposes in AI application itself. Instead, are more leveraging AI tools like this. This is, for example, what we see experience also looking at the numbers of the usage of the Ask Gordon. Ask Gordon, that is again the AI assistant that is helping in being effective and productive with Docker, is having pretty good traction, very good traction, and we have good feedback that is helping a lot. But when we land to how many developers are really creating AI applications, then the numbers are more of an issue, even if the majority of the developers are playing with AI. So a lot of developers are playing with OpenAI API of the ChatGPT of the situation, playing with what a RAG is, MCP tools. It's a very sexy topic in these days, but I usually ask to all the contacts that I have, okay, I know that you are playing with AI. How many applications you have in production AI related? And then here the numbers are much, much smaller at the moment.
That's an interesting observation. So what you're saying, and probably a lot of people agree with this, is developers are using all these tools to generate code, right? Help them generate code, test, play around, do their hobby projects. But when it comes to deploying production-ready code, there is still a human in the loop, correct? And there is still a review process.
Now, in this period of time here, from our experience, Totally, yes. And honestly, the most advanced use case are the ones that are working with AI, ML since a long time. I mean, as you know, Deepak, AI is not a new field in terms of solution. There are, absolutely brilliant company doing AI since a lot of years, also decades in some case. I mean, I don't want to quote Spotify, where I worked on, where I work for. That is not a secret. I mean, they have a brilliant entire department very good AI application. But this is not the Gen AI world that we are discussing right now. But anyway, I'm not saying that no one is working on this. I'm saying that if you look at the numbers, probably the majority of the developers are playing with AI, but how many of them are developing this in production?
That's it. That's a great point. The world today could be very different from the world tomorrow, but the reality is reality, right? Like today we are where we are. I think both of us are saying these tools have helped developers a lot. Like they've gotten them way more productive. It's just not production quality yet. Right? In terms of
Well, and just to be clear, I'm not saying that we will not land. I mean, I'm not saying that the AI is a bubble. I'm a stronger believer that it is already impacting our lives, and it will impact more. Not the life of the developers, not only the life of the developers, but the life of the end users all over the place, regardless of the sector, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying that this is a bubble. I'm saying that it is happening, but we need to be conscious about the path to get there. So it will not be something that is going to happen in one day. It's a good opportunity. Yeah?
Yeah. So when you think of the future, Francisco, let's talk a little bit about that. Like when you think of how developer productivity will change in future, just do you have any view of how this will shape out in the next few years? Where will AI come in and what will it do for developers?
So in my opinion, there are, of course, I believe that the topic that we were discussing before about being models more lighter, smaller, will impact because it will be more beneficial also for some use cases. I mean, think about, so I think it will evolve. But the most impactful thing, in my opinion, will be the agentic aspect of it. So for the moment, having the collaboration across agents, across AI entities is tricky and a little bit hard. MCP, it's a good example, but I don't think it's mature yet, or at least is gaining traction right now, a lot of interest, but it needs to be easier. So my bet is about ease of adoption of this agentic approach, because for the moment, the principles start to be clear. The interaction between the agents and the capabilities are starting to understand. MCP is a great help in collaboration, but it needs to be easier.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. Yeah. So right now we have the shovels in place, we have the frameworks, we have the protocols, all of that. But now we have to take those shovels and start making it work, right? And you want to see
Yes.
that evolution. So from that point, yeah, we are at a very, very early stage of AI. I completely agree with you on that. Francisco, let's move on to some quick fire questions before we end the segment. I want to start off by asking, what's your favorite AI tool?
Okay, so this is hard because I am biased, of course, and I think it's clear also from this conversation. But local LLMs for me are super exciting. I don't know if you intended, but this is my immediate thinking. So I see this as a tool because having the possibility to leverage a local LLM is a tool for developers. But I'm super excited about that because I can see also where it can gain traction pretty soon.
Nice. What's a big AI trend that you think will have an impact on developers in 2025?
So I think in 2025, this idea of the MCP tools for developers. So if you look at every development tool right now, I mean, Cursor or Claude, every also client that you install with the AI agents, they are attaching this MCP catalog, so tools to extend the power of your agent interaction. And in the short term, because again, we are already in May, so I mean, the 2025 will be some months ahead of us. I think that the MCP, so tooling related to the human-like interaction through an agent, will be the topic. Then I expect this to evolve also in tool by tool conversation and collaboration, and probably more.
Nice. Awesome. What's your most effective productivity hack?
So, as you can imagine, I use AI a lot, and I honestly use a lot of tools, probably probably to manage too many. Honestly, my hack, it's more about removing boring tasks from what I'm doing. I mean, I think every worker is doing much or less of boring tasks. Honestly, having an AI tool to remove some of the boring tasks that I have, I find it very, very interesting. And also the good essence of AI, the value of AI. I give you an example. I am a super fan of having AI tools for taking notes in meetings, because for me it's a little bit boring. And I mean, being a non-English native speaker, writing and taking notes while I'm listening and talking, it's almost impossible. So I cannot maybe raise some names, but there are amazing tools that are doing very well this job. I'm a less of a fan now. A lot of people is using the ChatGPT or Claude also for writing documents. I'm not sure how much time they're saving me, because I always use them, but I have to rewrite them always. So I'm not a super fan recently. But again, meeting notes for me is a killer feature of AI. I mean, not the only one. It's one of the hack that I use.
I agree with you there. I actually use granola. I don't know if you use that, but
Okay, it was
that's
mine.
I use that too. But it's been a huge time, and I believe the founders are European, if I'm not wrong. But it's been a huge
Well,
lifesaver.
I don't know if you listen to us, but it's a great product. I love this. I mean, it's saving a lot of my time. I mean, and I'm not paid to say that. Huh?
Yeah. Last question, Francisco. For anybody starting out in the AI space, any entrepreneur, any words of wisdom for them?
So I would say, so my advice, or at least my thought to share with them, is use it. I mean, I read a lot of articles, and I'm not sure how they are true or false, because sometimes they're very true, sometimes they're not. But I think that we need to stay closer to the AI capabilities to avoid the trap that the AI is magic. It's very hard to imagine the future of AI. Well, I can quote the topic of the AGI. So, and when it will come, that has been announced since the 60s. Maybe it's very close. Maybe it's happening today. Maybe it's happening tomorrow. I don't know, honestly. But my advice is to try by yourself. Know the strength, know the weakness, know the limitations. Is not easy, because everyone is doing AI. It's full of startups. It's full of products. So it's full of not mature product, potential product, good products. So understanding the strength and the weaknesses of the AI will make you more effective as an entrepreneur in betting in this space, because otherwise following only what the people is saying, including me, it could be a trap.
Love that advice. Yeah, just use it and try it out yourself and dive into it before you figure out what to start. On that note, Francisco, I'd say thank you so much for being on the show. And I think your insights on SLMs and Ask Garden and what Docker is doing were invaluable to our audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deepak, for inviting me, and it has been a pleasure.
Right. Take care, Francisco.